The key word here is individual. This was not corporate misbehavior. This was not a failing of the entire organization. This was the bad actions of one person. It was deliberate action. It was malicious intent. So, these are clearly isolated incidents, right? Is anyone here from the UK? No? Good, because they are all archcriminals. Look at what this research tells us. This was a man-in-the-street interview conducted in London, just asking people as they walked by, what would you do if? What would you do to your employer if you lost your job? More than half of the workforce said that they would seek revenge on a former employer. 55% would continue to use corporate property, the cell phone, the laptop, if it weren't taken from them. 6% said that they would delete important files. So in this room, that's at least 2 of us. Who are you? At least 6% would delete important files. 4% would let a virus loose in the environment. 67% would steal sensitive information if it would help them in their next job, and 38% would steal company leads. Now, I really don't consider the British archcriminals. I think these answers are probably frighteningly honest. And I think if you did a similar survey here, if you did it in Paris, certainly if you did it in New York, you would get fairly similar answers. So this type of behavior, we have employees in our environment sometimes that are just ticking time bombs, that are just waiting for the opportunity to strike at us. So why is it that we always fear the outsider? Why is it that when we think about an attack on our environment, we're always thinking about, some angsty teenager who's going to hack into our environment from the outside, instead of the people within our own environment waiting to do us harm? The reason that insider attacks hurt so much is because they're so easily perpetrated sometimes, and they are so easily perpetrated because the individual has 2 important rights. They have physical access to the environment, they have a legitimate business reason for being there, they are employed by the company, and they also have trust. We extend trust to that individual the minute that we hire them. And yet that's the cheapest control, it's the most widely deployed control, and yet it's the most easily violated, as we saw by just those 2 cases that we just talked about. Once an attacker, though, has physical control of an asset, it's difficult to retain protection on that asset once someone has already accessed it. And attacks perpetrated by people with trusted insider status pose far greater threat to the organization. That's the nature of insider threat. But, half my graphics, there we go. But who are these people? I mean, how do you tell who is the trusted insider, who should not be trusted? And what level of privilege do the most successful exploiters have? Typically, the people that we really need to watch out for are the privileged user, the super user, the people with admin access or root access to some, the people that we would consider having keys to the kingdom. These are, unfortunately, I'm not telling you to go home and distrust your entire IT environment, but unfortunately this is where we have to pay the most attention sometimes, because the privileged user is such a small percentage of our corporate population, yet they have the potential to do the most damage. Okay, I'm naming names here. It's the DBAs, the sysadmins, the network admins, and in certain circumstances our data entry personnel and our customer service representatives. Put them all under a microscope. These are the people that can do us the most damage, because these are the people that have legitimate access to either to the box or to the data, and who will access it one time a day, 100 times a day, all in the course of their normal duties. But all it takes is for them to access it one time to steal it, and how would you know? How can you tell if you accessed it for a good reason and you accessed it for a bad reason? Can't regulate the human heart. It's very difficult to tell. That's why these exploits are so successful. Just some examples of good intentions. An executive at Toyota Belgium took a CD with a whole bunch of sensitive data home. He was going to work on it over the weekend, left it on the bus. Was it encrypted? You know what his response was? Don't remember. You know what the real response should have been? No. If you don't remember encrypting it, it's probably not encrypted. It doesn't happen, organically. So So, best of intentions, sorry, I'm a smart aleck, but best of intentions, wanted to get some work done over the weekend, there goes your data riding down the street on the bus. Anybody can find it, anybody can access it. Then evil intentions, here we go with those evil Brits again. Look at this, the UK. A former representative at a high-tech firm continued to access a customer database for almost a year after he left his previous employer. Within 1 month, he had poached 1,300 clients just by going back to that database and saying, hey, I know I used to work for XYZ company, now I'm at ABC company, why don't you come with me? And he continued to exploit that database as if it was his own personal resource. Now, there was a study in the US, it's the CSI, the Computer Security Institute 2008 study, and the majority of perpetrators did not consider their actions illegal, and most of them considered their actions justified. If you haven't seen this one, it's free. It's freely available on the web. You should take a look at it because some of the case material in there will actually frighten you. It will absolutely make you distrust your IT folks. I can tell you that. But it was put together by CERT, Carnegie Mellon University, the Department of Defense, and with input from the Federal Bureau of Investigation. This is the link. There we go. This is the link to the study if you want to take a look at it. But the research was conducted across 13 critical infrastructure sectors. So you get a wide variety of types of business model and types of technology and types of personnel. But according to this particular study, 87% of those perpetrating the insider attacks were those privileged users, people we would think that consider as having the keys to the kingdom. Most of it was current employees. A lot of it, though, was former employees who continued to have access simply because no one disabled their network credentials when they left or when they were fired, which is really, that's not vigilant security. Most insiders were either previously or currently employed full-time in a technical position within the organization, but 38% of them had been arrested previously. Now, I know it's difficult for you because of EU DPD and other member state privacy laws. I know it's difficult for some of you to do background checks on your employees without having them sign, a lot of legal waivers. In the United States, you can pretty much demand that you do a background check on an employee. And as a condition of hiring, they have to give you the social security number, and you can do criminal background check, credit check. That's pretty much standard operating procedure. So for these people, 38% of these insiders that had trusted access, when it's so easy to do a criminal background check, and 38% of them had been arrested previously, that is a frighteningly high number. Yeah, this is the usual scary statistic, but as I said, this privileged user group is 5% of the population, but it does over half of the successful exploits. So these are the people who know where to go, know what to do, and know how to do the most harm. And they have time on their side. They can afford to be patient and nurse their grudges and lick their wounds and plot and plan their revenge on us. 62% of the attacks in this survey were planned in advance, and 57% of the attackers said they would consider themselves disgruntled. 64% used remote access to carry out that attack. So we are clearly not keeping our houses clean and keeping our remote access and our privileges and our access restricted appropriately if this kind of hijinks can go on a regular basis. We are not proactively monitoring. We're just not. We're being reactive in these cases, and we are not, because most insider attacks are discovered through manual processes. That's actually how Curviel was discovered. Through manual processes. It was a compliance officer reconciling a whole months worth of trades that found the anomalies. He wasn't caught by any neural net scoring. He wasn't caught by any balance sheet. He wasn't caught by anything that didn't quite work in any kind of security tool or any kind of financial tool. He was caught by a compliance officer. System logs, simple system logs, are the most prevalent means by which insiders are identified. And the majority of the insiders took steps to cover their tracks to make it even harder to actually pin the malicious activity on them. We find out about these things after the fact, just like Curviel, just like with Richard Gibson. We don't